Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, glad you're here with us here on Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Great show coming up. We've got a couple of great guests on the way. We're going to talk some FIFA talk and post-World Cup soccer in just a couple of minutes. First time on the show, Clemente Lisi. Cannot wait to talk with him about, I don't know if you've been keeping up with this, but the scandal of the desire to sell the World Cup. And that ain't happening, but we'll get into all that in a minute. I don't want to ruin it. Let's let the expert talk about that. And then a bit later on in the show, Anthony Miller talking WNBA, now well into the second half of the season. And things starting to heat up right now, get really interesting. We'll have a conversation with him about that. Today is August 6th. If you're my friend Paul listening today, happy birthday. I know you check out the show on a regular basis. Also born today, Mike Budenholzer, the NBA coach, won a title with the Bucks. He's 57 today. Also, David Robinson, the Basketball Hall of Famer, 61. Former three-point specialist Dale Ellis out of Marietta, Georgia. Former longtime Seattle Supersonic, went to Tennessee. He is 66. If you were born today, 6th day of August, also born on this day, the former great cornerback for the Cincinnati Bengals, Ken Riley, perennial All-Pro, born in 1947. And Bob Horner, who passed away earlier this year, born on this day in 1957. Talking FIFA, they said on Wednesday that they apologized for errors made over Gianni Infantino's failed plan to sell stakes in the World Cup, and that senior staff in attendance at a summit held in Morocco, quote, reaffirmed their full support for his presidency. World Soccer's governing body attempting to present a unified front amid the turbulence caused by Infantino's controversial plans with calls for him to step down. Who could challenge him for FIFA presidency? Why Infantino's plans to sell off the World Cup made no sense? And could Infantino lose FIFA presidency after the World Cup plans were rejected? I mean, he's up next year. Well, in a statement, FIFA said their Secretary General, Matthias Grafström, and members of the management board in attendance at the meeting had given their full support to the embattled president, referring to plans to sell profits in the World Cup through a commercial subsidiary called FIFA Forward Enterprise, or FFE. The statement said, quote, mistakes made were acknowledged and that the process, quote, should have been handled differently, end quote. Now, FIFA said a letter had been sent to FIFA Council and member associations apologizing for errors and committed to, quote, ensure they do not happen again, end quote. Grafström's stated support was notable after he distanced himself from Infantino's now abandoned plans in an email to all FIFA staff, calling the last week, quote, a sad and reproachable series of events, end quote. FIFA said Infantino had also reaffirmed his support for Secretary General. World Soccer's governing said the FFE proposal was now off the table. It remains to be seen if Wednesday's meeting will ease the pressure on Infantino. Earlier in the day, the Association of European Soccer Leagues, including the Premier League, La Liga, and Serie A, called for governance reform of FIFA, describing the FFE proposal as dangerous and said it pointed to deeper concerns about how governing body operates. It said it raised serious questions, that's a quote, about FIFA's governance, internal culture, and decision-making, end quote. Another quote, now more than ever, FIFA requires governance reform that ensures that all relevant stakeholders have a formal role in decisions that shape the future of our game, end quote. Portugal and Real Madrid great Luis Figo also called for Infantino to step down, saying he had, quote, debased the office. And so, again, so much going on with this. We'll step away for 60 seconds, and then we'll have Clemente Lisi to talk more about this right here on the Sports IQ. Time now for today's moment of all. The massive trade that sent Herschel Walker from the Dallas Cowboys to the Minnesota Vikings is something that often gets talked about. The 1989 deal that landed the Cowboys several players and future draft picks that resulted in Emmitt Smith and Russell Maryland, among others, and formed the foundation for 3 Super Bowl champions there in Dallas. But a trade that's not talked about much is the huge transaction that sent Kevin Garnett from the NBA's Minnesota Timberwolves to the Celtics. Garnett began the practice of high school players going directly to the NBA when he was drafted 5th overall by the two Wolves in the 1995 draft. He became one of the game's best players, one of only 5 players in NBA history to win both the Most Valuable Player Award as well as the Defensive Player of the Year award. But in the summer of 2007, Garnett, no longer a kid looking to join a championship contender, Minnesota obliged, sending Garnett to the Celtics. 7 players traded for Garnett that set a league record for most players swapped for 1 player. They went on to win the title the next year. And there it is. That's our moment of all.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues right now. Listen, so many stories going on. We talked a lot in July about how usually that's kind of the month that you kind of everyone takes vacation, whatnot. If you did, you missed out on a ton of things, including not only the World Cup, but what's happened since the World Cup. And to help us make sense of all of it, we're joined now for the first time, Clemente Lisi. He is with the soccer writer for Forbes, also his Substack, also was Planet Soccer. Clemente, good to see you. Welcome to Sports IQ.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's, I guess, start with this most recent right now. And in terms of the desire to sell the World Cup, take us through this and kind of where we are right now with that.
Yeah, this announcement was never made by FIFA. This was actually leaked in the media and the British press, where it was literally almost a week after the World Cup final. So all the excitement around the World Cup and all that, and Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, was at the top of the world. And now within 4 days of the World Cup final, we hear stories that they were bringing in a private equity fund. They were going to create a new corporation and then actually sell the rights to these individual tournaments, the Women's World Cup, the Club World Cup, but of course the Men's World Cup being the biggest one. That immediately drew, ridicule and consternation from all over the world, including Europe, which is one of the biggest voting blocs, and where the game really is at its highest level. So much so that the UEFA, the European governing body, said, well, we're going to boycott every tournament. We're not going to be in the World Cup anymore if this proceeds. Because it was seen as a money grab. It was seen as something that really was going to be detrimental to the game. And it was going to be beholden not just to the people, because FIFA is a nonprofit, but to these very wealthy individuals who are going to, earn shares, or literally own shares of the World Cup, which, as everyone saw in the last 5 weeks, is this massive tournament and extremely lucrative. FIFA is going to make probably $13 billion from the World Cup alone. So I think this is something that really soccer fans were really upset about it. And like I said, Europe decided to boycott future tournaments, and that was really the only leverage they had. And FIFA immediately, basically within a week, got rid of the whole plan and disregarded it. So that's where we are now. Now we're in sort of the fallout of all of this and the aftermath of it all.
Yeah. I guess for me, when this first leaked and we're all reading about it going, wait, what? We've heard now for a couple of years where we're seeing private equity getting into college athletics for NIL, and you can kind of parse through and go, okay, I'm not comfortable with that, but this makes sense. I mean, I guess my first question is, why do this? I mean, why, like you said, it's a nonprofit. This is flowing. It's worked for decades. Why even entertain this?
It's two-pronged. One is the money that FIFA makes over a 4-year cycle then is doled out to the 211 federations to help grow the game around the world. So Brazil gets money, Italy gets money, but so do smaller countries like Guatemala and, the Republic, the DR Congo. Those countries get it, and it can really go a long way. So he was selling it as, hey, instead of me giving you the 10, $11 million I usually give you over the 4 years, I'll give you 40 million now because we have this private equity coming in. So that was a selling point.
Okay.
Flip side of the coin is, I think Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, spent a lot of time in the United States over the past few years, especially during the World Cup, speaking to people in business and finance and to other commissioners of other leagues. And I think he realized, you know what? If Roger Goodell can make $64 million a year and he just runs the NFL, I run FIFA, which is an international organization. Soccer is the number one sport in the world. I only make $6 million. See, part of this plan was that he would become the commissioner of this newly formed organization, and then he was going to make $30 million a year. So a lot of people are saying, well, you're doing this, yes, to bring in more money into the game so you can give it out more and grow the game. That's true. But he was going to personally make a lot of money from this, and that's really what got people upset.
Yeah, and therein lies the rub. So, okay, well, that's why I asked the question there. That makes sense. What is next now for him? He had the issue with the U.S. team and the red card. We're not going to punish him before the Belgium match, and now you have this. Like you said, here's somebody who's literally sitting on top of the world, and now seems to have a murky future with FIFA.
Well, yeah, we should. You mentioned Balogun and the red card. That's tied to this too, because some of the reporting that's come out says that Infantino was getting very cozy with the Trump administration and people in American business. The person who was going to run this private equity operation was going to be Jared Kushner's brother, and Jared Kushner's Donald Trump's son-in-law. So there's a Trump tie-in to that. Now, at the same time, Infantino was due to get reelected in March of 2027. His term is up. His reelection was seen up until a few weeks ago as a sure thing. And Europe and in the Asian groups and Europe, Asia, and some other confederations have basically given him a no confidence vote.
Mm.
So it's, every country gets one vote. So now his reelection is in peril because they just don't trust that he can govern this organization in the future for one last term. And so that's something that's really, really surprising, because it went from he was a sure thing to now we had this private equity debacle to now he may not even be in the job in a year from now.
Yeah.
So that's where he's at now. And it's a very delicate situation. And because there's no soccer being played really at a high level, the Premier League hasn't started yet. There hasn't been a big tournament. That all the soccer talk is about this now. The news cycle, he's in the news cycle now, and he can't get out of it. And he hasn't done anything publicly, hasn't spoken about this publicly. They're just doing it through statements. So he's never really given his side of the story. He's lost control of the narrative. And now, like I said, I think his future is in peril.
I've told people so many times that if there's a story out there and you don't counter it, tell your side, that becomes your narrative. And here, seeing it play out again, we as journalists know this is the way that the cycle happens. It's just the way that we we process things. You're right. It is unfortunate, because I want to get to the World Cup in itself. This was what I thought was a success. It was thrilling. We saw the numbers on Fox and across the board jump, exponentially, right, from 2022. And it's unfortunate that you had all that even the issue with Balogun and the U.S. Belgium before that, and the red card, even that kind of went away once we got into the quarterfinals and moved on into the semis, etc. It just was great theater, and you had non-soccer fans really watching this. It's unfortunate because this was somebody who follows soccer on a pedestrian level. I mean, I enjoy it. I don't sit down and watch every weekend. But I do follow the big matches, big tournaments. There's a lot here to be happy about in the game of soccer.
There was something interesting too, is that FIFA's original plan was to make this announcement the day before the World Cup final at a press conference at the World of Astoria. That never happened. It actually got leaked later. That would have been super interesting if on the eve of the final, he would have dropped this bomb on the world. It would have been super interesting. That never happened. But because he never had a press conference and never could basically even bask in the afterglow of the World Cup, which, like you said, was a huge success. Because it was a huge success, I think is part of the reason why they went forward with this plan. So it's kind of, chicken and egg, right? But at the same time, he wasn't even able to bask in the afterglow, like I said. And then now he's got to deal with the fallout. And yeah, it's really unfortunate because Infantino was always about legacy, building his legacy. And if, let's say, he doesn't get reelected and it all ends like this, no one will remember this World Cup for being great. Or if they do, they won't credit him for it. And the build up to the World Cup was full of consternation, right? We had the high ticket prices, we had the ice raids, the potential for them, all these bad stories. And once the game started, that all went away. And as soon as the games ended, we went back to this. So, so for FIFA, the best thing is when you're actually playing games and we're talking about Messi and who scored a goal and comebacks and all that. That's great for soccer. But when we talk about off the field stuff, the boardroom stuff, the financial stuff, and we should point out that FIFA has been scandal plagued now for about 15, 20 years. They had a huge scandal a decade ago, which ushered in Infantino to try to rebuild the image. And now here we are back to where we started.
Yeah, I was going to say anyone should just go Google Sepp Blatter, and if you want to hear more about
it's bad when Sepp Blatter is putting out tweets condemning Infantino, then and kettle meet black, it's that kind of thing. It's really interesting to see how that all kind of flipped around now.
Exactly. Talking here on Sports IQ with Clemente Lisi. Once again, he is a soccer writer for Forbes, also his Substack, as well as Planet Soccer. Let's get to, I guess, some of the from the ridiculous to the sublime, if you will. Spain coming out of this, and what a wonderful, you want to say kind of passing of the torch with the veteran Messi to the young star there with Spain. Spain comes through again, a thriller. How does take away the off the pitch stuff? How did this summer benefit the game of soccer in your mind, in the U.S. as well as even around the world, with all that we did see and all that we did enjoy? with this great game.
Yeah, specifically the United States, because we're not a quote unquote soccer country. FIFA would love the US to be a premier soccer nation because you have so many eyeballs here and so many people that would buy tickets and jerseys and all that. And FIFA's goal really is to grow the game in three countries where it's not big: the United States, India, and China. Those are three massive countries, and they don't have the biggest market share. Look, hosting the World Cup is always a great thing for any country that does it because it does give it a boost. Um, but now the truth is, well, people want to go from watching Spain, Argentina in a final to watching an MLS game on a Saturday afternoon. That's going to be a tough sell, I think. MLS, I think, is a great league. It's not generate the excitement of the World Cup. The World Cup for an American audience reminds me a little bit about how much we're all into figure skating at the Olympics or gymnastics. But then after the Olympics are over, we're not really watching gymnastics on a random Sunday, right? So the goal for MLS now is how do they build this? And then for the U.S. national team is how do they stay competitive? Now, they recently rehired their coach, Mauricio Pochettino, this week. So that's a good sign that, they'll continue in the right direction with this coach who I think was able to get something out of this group that was pretty amazing. I know it all ended with a huge defeat to Belgium, but I think ultimately they were getting NFL type ratings for these games, which I think even Fox was surprised and Telemundo were very surprised. So that's sort of the US market. Also, I should point out, co-host Canada, the game needs to grow there as well. Canada is obviously a hockey country, not a soccer country. And even they saw lots of attendance and high numbers. So I think going forward, it will be a great legacy. 94, the US hosted the World Cup, and here we are 30 years later. It's a very big difference. In 94, people didn't really know what the World Cup was. And now people do watch the World Cup every 4 years, even if you don't watch soccer, like you said, week to week.
That's it. I was thinking about that, the 94. You're exactly right. In terms of the difference in the perception and where we're, of course, as a society, we're different too. We consume media and games. I want to get back to Sepp Blatter and now Infantino. What is it about the structure of FIFA that just seems to breed this kind of stuff? No matter what leader you bring in, what can FIFA do, I guess, to clean things up? Let's say they do move past him next year in 2027. How can they do things differently, maybe, to get things kind of on board and not have these things pop up every few years?
Yeah, they're based in Switzerland, and they're not really accountable to anybody. That's the issue. So they're a nonprofit, but they're transparent when they want to be transparent, and they have internal ways of ensuring transparency. But it is a closed sort of circuit, so there's no way of seeing their finances. We only see what they give us. They're not audited by anybody. No one oversees them. The trouble is they're always, promoting people and advancing people that are within the system. So, for example, there's already rumors about maybe one of the vice presidents will become the new president. That wouldn't solve anything. Those people have been there for as long as Infantino, if not longer. So they're probably part of the problem. Now, some of them claim they knew nothing about this, which is also kind of scary to think that Infantino was making a side deal here without even telling people within the organization. But I think what they need to do is really need to bring in an outsider to be their president. That's unlikely to happen because I think the status quo does benefit not just FIFA, but many nations around the world. And so that's difficult. I think what they'll do is they'll give it a fresh coat of paint. But I think whoever does take over, if it's not Infantino, if it's somebody else, I think we might end up in the same spot here 10 years from now. It's just the nature of the beast. It's unfortunate. The IOC that runs the Olympics is similar. These large international organizations are not beholden to anybody. And only on occasion when they interrupt or interfere or do business abroad can an outside, like the federal government in the United States, took down some of these FIFA people because they were doing banking in the United States. So that allowed the FBI to investigate. But at the current moment, there's no way that anybody can do anything about this. So it's unfortunate. And because people love soccer and the game and the World Cup so much, they're willing to forgive FIFA. They hate FIFA. They love the game, but they really hate FIFA. But FIFA has this great product that people can't get enough of. And unfortunately, FIFA knows that.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, we're riding the wave of this, just all this good juju, right? I mean, this is great. This is the whole world's together. It's awesome. And then boom, there you go. So Clemente, listen, we have taken enough of your time, man. Great to meet you. Great to talk with you. We're all about great conversation and learning more. And you've done that for us. Really appreciate your time. And hopefully you'll join us again.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Clemente Lisi joining us once again. He is a soccer writer for Forbes. Also, his Substack is Project Soccer with some great insight right now. FIFA, the World Cup, Infantino. As always, stay tuned. More to come. Stay with us.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You gotta call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free. Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
Man, great to talk to Clemente there, and hopefully again he can join us later on in the show, as this is something, again, like we said, FIFA just seems to way to find controversy, right? Big news Wednesday coming out of the state of Maryland in horse racing. The Preakness Stakes moving from its traditional date of the third Saturday in May. Instead, it'll be held on the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, starting next year, 2027. This will be the first time that any Triple Crown race has ever been run on a Sunday. Now, the change was announced by Maryland Governor Wes Moore and the Maryland Jockey Club as they hope to bring a top field back to the second leg of horse racing's Triple Crown. The schedule change is in response to the recent increase in trainers opting not to run their horses in the Preakness, which is just 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. In fact, in 2026, there were no horses in the Preakness field that also ran in the Derby. And since 2022, great stat here, producer Tony, thank you for this, just 13 out of 95 horses that ran in the Kentucky Derby have been in the field as well at the Preakness, which just basically negates any chance at a Triple Crown and really takes the luster off one of the great horse races on the schedule. So now what does the Belmont Stakes do in New York? Well, in 2027, if things stand the way they are, the Belmont is slated to run just 13 days after this new date for the Preakness. So trainers will then have to decide if they can get a horse from the Preakness ready for the Belmont. Folks, don't be surprised at all with NBC re-upping the TV rights until 2032 if the Belmont suddenly happens later in June. Now, you know, we discussed this last year with horse racing reporting legend Kenny Rice. We had him on the show a couple of times, if you recall. This was the conversation. We do know that Churchill Downs, in the past year, they actually bought the rights to the Preakness Stakes, and they've actually leasing it back to Maryland. So there's a part of that there as well. There was also the announcement earlier this week of having a new 6-race field to determine kind of the top 3-year-old. And so the question is, too, will that water down the Triple Crown? Look, you're going to put these horses, you know, it may diminish the importance long-term of the Triple Crown, but at the same time, it looks to elevate horse racing. If you've got 6 races instead of 3, if you can spread them out now at the Belmont Place Ball, and you can spread these out, it does make horse racing a much bigger deal on the schedule, because now you have 6 must-see races if you can develop it like that, and you know that TV will. Again, another way to get those ad dollars on there. We've talked about how big July was on the schedule with WNBA All-Star, Major League Baseball All-Star. NBA Summer League's become a bigger deal now. This is just another chance to get horse racing up there and extend the sports TV calendar, find another spot to get top advertisers and bring something out there. So again, let's watch and see what happens in New York with the Preakness. Let's get to baseball right now, and on the field, the Red Sox, another heater. Wilyer Abreu homering for the 4th time in 3 games. Sonny Gray striking out 8 in 6 innings, getting his 14th win. Surging Boston, beating the White Sox 4-0. Now, the Red Sox they've won 7 straight, 25 of 28, and 9 consecutive series. That's the second longest streak in franchise history, behind an 11 series run way back in 1912. If you're keeping score at home, that's the year the Titanic sunk. Just a little small thing. That's how long it was. Gray, 14-2, allowing 3 hits, walking 2, and moves into a tie with Philadelphia's Christopher Sanchez for the major league lead in victories. Man, Gray has had a great season. You know who else has won 7 straight on the diamond? The Atlanta Braves. Bryce Elder pitching 1-hit ball over 7 innings. Drake Baldwin driving in 2 runs. Atlanta winning their season high 7th in a row, beating the Marlins 4-1. So again, we've talked a lot about the Marlins, and in terms of them kind of, falling off here just a bit in the second half, and that slide continues there. Again, it looks like it's going to be the Braves and the Phillies going down the stretch for that. One more note from the baseball world. The National League MVP race heating up on Wednesday. Cubs center fielder Pete Crow-Armstrong and Dodger star Shohei Ohtani each hitting 2 home runs in a wild 7-6 win for Chicago. The Cubs, the 3-game sweep of the 2-time defending World Series champs. Crow-Armstrong, who also had a double and 4 RBIs, acknowledged afterwards that the MVP talk is kind of fun. He said, I would be crazy to say I don't want to win an MVP, but if we're talking about having priorities straight, I think mine are. It's not on the forefront of my mind. It's fun to joke about. It's fun to acknowledge. And I think it's absolutely okay to pay attention to, but it's not like it's following me up to the plate. End quote. Crow-Armstrong and Ohtani each hitting home runs to lead off Wednesday's game, marking the second time in Wrigley Field history since 1913, the year after the Titanic, that both teams hit a leadoff home run. Crow-Armstrong's second blast in the 4th inning gave him 25 on the year, made him the first player in Cubs history to produce consecutive seasons of 25 home runs and 25 steals. He also now has the second most home runs, 67, in franchise history for a player before the age of 25, trailing only Hall of Famer Ron Santo. Great story developing there in the North Side with Pete Crow-Armstrong. All right, stay with us. WNBA Talk with Anthony Miller is up next. Welcome back here, August 6th. Glad you're joining us on this Thursday. Producer Tony is with our next guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And, at this time of year, I know a lot of folks are talking about football and this football season's coming, but really we're in the heart of the WNBA season. They're going to have another break for some world games coming up here before they get to the playoff time. They just passed their trade deadline, and today we're lucky enough to have Anthony Miller. He is Heavy.com's writer for the WNBA, one of the folks that covers the WNBA for Heavy. Anthony, welcome to the show. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Tony. I appreciate it.
Let's discuss the WNBA. And at the trade deadline, I was expecting maybe a little more action. It seemed to be really maybe the WNBA hasn't quite gotten to that point like baseball and football and basketball and all the flurry of things that happen at a trade deadline, but really was a paucity of moves. Is that because teams are really happy with their rosters?
I mean, the interesting thing about the WNBA this year is that there's all the playoff teams are very top heavy, and then all the teams that are kind of out of the playoff, or I don't want to say they're out of the playoffs, but there's a lot of teams that there's a huge separation, right? Like the Washington Mystics are the 8th seed, and they're like 5-6 teams ahead of the next line of teams like the Sparks and the Mercury and the Chicago Sky. So I just don't think that, the top teams are like, we don't really need to add anyone because we feel like we have all the talent we need. There's a lot of teams out there that have a big 3 or 4 that they can work with. So I think they're perfectly fine and don't want to really give up draft picks or, role players for some of the lower end teams. And the lower end teams don't really have like the star power per se to give any of the star, the top teams in the league outside of, what LA had with, Kelsey Plum. Outside of that, there wasn't really like much to really work with. So it just felt like everyone just kind of wanted to stay put and, feel confident that they have what they need to make the playoff run.
Yeah. So now it looks like everybody's going to kind of ride out the season with what they have. As we come in, we're entering kind of that home stretch area. It's about 15 games or so, less than that. left in the regular season. We're going to have a couple week break for the World Games coming up here in a little bit. As you look at the league, the way it is right now, obviously the Lynx are having a great season. Are you surprised at all at how good Olivia Miles has been with the Lynx at this point, joining such a strong franchise off the bounce here?
I mean, she was really good in college at Notre Dame. So I think the talent level was always there. It's just how quickly she has progressed. And I think a lot of it is because Minnesota is a very experienced team. They have a lot of talent there, with Collier and with McBride, and that they have a ton of talent already there in place to kind of help her along. But I guess what surprised me more is that she's playing at a level where it doesn't feel like she's just a top rookie. Like, she's a top 10 player in this league. Like, her ball handling skills are already miles ahead of where a rookie should be. She's a great scorer. She's got good instincts with passing the ball. Like, she can do all the things that, like, very similar to what Caitlin Clark did in her rookie year, but it does feel like Olivia is a little more ahead than where Caitlin was in her rookie career. So that's been a lot of fun to watch. I think Olivia is just kind of in a league of her own where she's definitely going to win Rookie of the Year, but she also might actually be like legitimately in the conversation to be the MVP.
Is it kind of scary for the rest of the league looking at the Lynx and going, okay, they built the best record in the league and they didn't have Nafisha Collier. Now they're going to add Nafisha Collier. Lord, what do we do with them now?
Yeah, I mean, you got to pick your poison when it comes down to them. They have so much talent. Like, even like Courtney Williams is really coming on strong at the guard position. So it's just like you have so many pieces there for Minnesota. And like, no offense to Vegas, they've been such a great team over the last few years, but I just don't know if anyone has quite the talent level that Minnesota has. And that's why they've kind of separated themselves as like the top team in the W.
Yeah, if you look at the Aces, they're right there behind Minnesota. They're number 2 in the league at this point in time, still with that core from last year and still playing, great basketball. I think if you would ask anybody, most pundits would kind of want to see almost a Lynx Aces final matchup because they've been so strong over the last few years in this league.
Yeah, I mean, they feel like the two teams right now that are kind of red hot and can get there. I mean, obviously, Asia Wilson's the best player in the league, so even just having her alone really helps this team. But when you got Jackie Young and Gray there as well, like they have a ton of talent on that Vegas team. So even like without having Plum there the last couple of years, that's still a team that's just dominating from head to toe. So it does feel like it's definitely a kind of a course collision for those two to me, but I think a lot of it could depend too on the Indiana Fever, like how they've been really hot of late. And even when they lost this weekend to Minnesota, I mean, they were competitive in that game and they still put up 100 points. So I do feel like Indiana should be in the conversation as well with them. And, that I would say those are probably the 3 teams that seem to be right there in the conversation to win the title.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Obviously, there's a lot of fans around the league that follow the Fever because of Caitlin Clark. Their roster is much more than Caitlin Clark at this point. Kelsey Mitchell's having another big year. Aaliyah Boston has been an all-star, and she's so strong in the middle. Do they have enough to keep up with those other 2, do you think, to make a run at one of them? Or do one of these 3 really need to get hot and kind of carry that load?
Well, what I like about the Fever is they kind of have a little bit of everything in terms of the type of players they have. So you have like Caitlin Clark, who can kind of do it all with, scoring, assisting, rebounding. You have Boston, who's becoming a better shooter from 3-point land and also can help with rebounding. Kelsey Mitchell is just, I think right now she's the best scorer in the WNBA. She's at least the hottest one in the WNBA at this point. You got Sophie Cunningham, who's, a 3-point shooter. I even think Big Billings has had a nice run here in the last week or two where she's kind of stepped up to the plate. So they have the starting lineup. And like, even like Lexi Cole is, I think, a really solid guard for them. So they have the talent there. They have, the bench to compete with the rest of them. It's just a matter of, does Minnesota and Vegas have a little bit stronger starting lineups? They do, but I do think the Fever have all the key pieces that they're covered on every angle that they can at least be competitive and maybe push them to be either one of those teams in the finals.
The Liberty are kind of struggling right now. They haven't been very consistent all year. Of course, they've had injury problems. They've had people in and out of the lineup all the way around. They're only 2 years removed from winning the WNBA title. Is that a dangerous team that you don't want to face in the first couple rounds if they can get everybody healthy and kind of gel here in the last part of the season?
Yeah, I mean, Breonna Stewart is obviously still one of the best players in the league, and she's been kind of carrying the load there. I'm interested to see if Satu Sabali can get healthy, because if she can get healthy, she's one that can kind of do a little bit of everything: shoot from 3-point land, rebound, score. So, I mean, if she can get back healthy 100% for New York, I think they got a legitimate shot of competing. I'm just concerned that maybe they've put themselves too much into a hole at the beginning of the year, that now they're kind of, they had that large losing streak in the middle of the year. So now they're trying to fight back. So it looks like they may be one of the lower seeds. So unfortunately, this feels like a year where maybe they've dug themselves too much of a hole, that they're going to have a really tough run in the playoffs. But if anyone could do it at the bottom end of the playoff hunt, that it's definitely going to be New York.
Yeah. Do you think that when we look at the season the way it is right now, we're coming up on like a little bit of a break here? Do you think that that's going to hurt the contenders? Do you think it helps the lower teams? Is there something in there that you can read into the tea leaves a little bit with this break coming up for the World Games coming up, that might help somebody across the long run?
Yeah, I think it probably will help the contenders a little bit more to try to get everyone healthy. I mean, you talked about New York having injury problems. Indiana, obviously, with Caitlin Clark still dealing with the back stuff. I think it'll be good for kind of all of them to get the break. The bottom end teams, really outside of right now, I think Phoenix, I don't know how many of them are really going to be competitive and make a push for the playoff hunt. Toronto could make a push after, trading for Morrows, but really outside of those two, I just don't know like which ones of the bottom ends are really going to be competitive. So I think it's more of an advantage for those top end teams to get healthy and get ready for what's going to be a very tough playoff run, because there's so many teams in those top 8 that are just really solid teams that could make legitimate arguments they can make a run.
Yeah, we saw the Dream with a big comeback win over this past weekend, to make some hay there down in Atlanta. They've got a solid core. They could possibly make a run. What do you think they need to do to possibly get up into that, last little tier of being one of those top 3 teams that might have a shot at this title? Is it consistency that they're lacking?
I think offensively they just don't have, I don't know, just that great score. Like when you look at Minnesota, they have like Olivia Miles. When you look at Indiana, they have Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell. Like when you look at Vegas, they got Asia Wilson. Like Atlanta, they got like good pieces. Like Gray can help score. Canada's a decent scorer. You look at Howard, she's a good scorer. Angel Reese, will get points, but she's more of, that defensive presence and that paint presence. So it feels like they have like a lot of really good shooters, but they don't have one that is going to make the difference to get them into that championship. So that feels like a team right now that they're always going to be playoff quality, just because Angel Reese is one of the top 5, 10, top 5, top 10 best players in this league. But I just don't know if they have the other pieces around them at the guard position that's like going to be like, oh wow, there's our scorer. She's going to get us 20 to 22 points per game.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Of the next teams down in this tiers, if you say, of the WNBA, what I'm looking at is the Wings have made a nice strong showing this year. Added AZ Fudd to the mix. She's kind of coming on little by little. You got the Mystics, who had 3 of the top 5 draft picks, not this past year, but the year before. And they seem to have compiled some extra capital in the draft for the coming years. And you've got the Valkyries. Of those 3 teams, which one or two kind of impresses you the most? And which one would you say has the best and brightest future going a few seasons down the road, if they can keep it all together?
Well, Golden State is very impressive because I feel like they're the best defensive team in the WNBA, and that's kind of helped them win a lot of games. I don't know if they necessarily have the offensive firepower to keep up with some of those top teams, but their defense has been good enough, or has been great enough, I should say, that they've been able to win a lot of games and be able to be competitive in most of them. So I really like what they've done defensively. But I mean, I feel like the Dallas Wings just have the brightest future just because, Paige Beckers is a top 5 player in this league. The way she handles the ball, the way she's scoring, she's doing a lot of good stuff. But also the big surprise with Dallas is Jessica Shepard's performance and what she's done this year. I mean, she's averaging a triple-double per game. I mean, it's just insane what she's doing at this point. And, Arike Gubawali is still a really good scorer in this league, and she's kind of taken that step back and let Paige become, the lead in the offense for Dallas. So Arike is still playing really good basketball. So that talent level that Dallas has, like, they have enough youth there that they'll be competitive for a long time. And, credit to Coach Fernandez for the work that he's done and kind of getting this team to where they needed to be. He kind of had a quick turnaround from jumping in his first year, but he's put a really good roster together to the point where this is a Wings team that's going to be competitive for a long time. They may not be there quite yet this year, but give them a year or two, and this feels like a team that probably will win a title at some point.
We've got about 60 seconds left here, Anthony. There's going to be a lot of expansion over the next few years coming in. With the level of play that you're seeing, do you think it's good that we're expanding by another 2 or 3 teams, or do you think we're going to dilute the talent too much in the next 2 or 3 years?
I think the talent level is there. I mean, we've kind of seen over the last couple of years with Golden State coming in, with Portland and Toronto, like, these are not bad basketball teams. Like, these are competitive teams. They are good. I mean, obviously Golden State is one of the best teams in the league, but like, you even look at like Toronto and Portland, like, those are teams that, they have a lot of work to do with the rosters, but they're still competitive and they're still pushing teams to the limit. So I think this is just showing that, for women's basketball, there is a ton of talent out there. You just got to keep adding these teams and really bring out all the talent. So I've been impressed with the play this year. I do think this is one of the strongest overall talents that the league has had, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing when these new teams come in the next year or two, how much they can keep bringing in top talent.
Excellent. Anthony Miller, thank you so much for joining us, kind of giving us some insights here into the WNBA season. Anthony is the WNBA writer at heavysports.com. Check his work out, get some great information. It's always good to be informed, especially if you're a fan of the WNBA as we are. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Sports IQ, but we'll be right back with more after this.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Man, great conversation there as the W continues to rock on. They're going to, again, we want to make sure yesterday we talked about that the Cleveland Sirens, the new nickname for the expansion team in 2028, that is 2028 they begin playing. Next year's change in the W is going to be the Connecticut Sun moving to Houston, presumably retaking the Comets nickname they had back when the league first began, and they were the dynasty to start the league. Okay, college football time now. Woohoo! And here we go. Producer Tony's preseason top 25. Second year that he has done this. And man, it's been great to have this conversation every single day. We began last week with number 25. Our countdown continues to number 17 on your list. So producer Tony, who comes in at 17?
Number 17 is going to be the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And I know some folks are out there like, whoa, come on, this is a team that's going to make the playoff. Well, yeah, talent-wise, maybe. But if I'm adding everything up and looking at it as a whole, I think the whole Brendan Sorsby case and everything that went along with it is going to be a hangover effect in Lubbock this season. Look, it was crazy out there on the west side of Texas, right? They spent more time defending Sorsby and dealing with the media and other colleges upset over the prospects of Sorsby playing after the NCAA ruled him eligible than they did anything else. So I think that put them behind the 8 ball. I know that Texas Tech winning the Big 12 outright last year was huge. And it was their first conference title since the 50s, when the Red Raiders were part of something called the Border Conference. This is a program that's never been to these heights, Larry, and you got to wonder if they're going to keep breathing that rarefied air. I'm just wondering, after everything that happened, it just seems like they are just setting themselves up for a downturn this year.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it's unfortunate because you had the great momentum coming off 2025, right? And then all this stuff happened in the offseason. By the way, a little bit of we enjoy educating people here on Sports IQ. Raise your hand if you had heard of the Border Conference. Raise your other hand, don't if you're driving, if you can name any other team that was in that conference. Okay. I think everybody's safe. Nobody put themselves in jeopardy on that one. But you're exactly right. This is one, and it's too bad. I think the program will recover. I think this is a program that is here to stay as one of the new powers, if you will, one of the new elite teams in college football. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be very difficult to get through, especially when the Red Raiders play in a very competitive year in, year out Big 12 conference.
Yeah, the Big 12 is a solid conference. There's a lot of good teams in there, BYU, TCU. You've got some really talented squads down there in the Big 12. The Red Raiders lost a ton from that 12-win squad from last year. They bring back part of the O-line, but not all of it. Look, they do have a really talented running back in Cameron Dickey, who's like that 5'10" bowling ball of a running back. He had over 1,200 yards last year, scored 14 TDs. They're going to lean on him this year. But, Larry, it really comes all the way back to that quarterback issue. Again, what are they going to do? The starter from last year is gone, maxed out. He was finished, no more eligibility. They sought out Sorsby. The transfer from Cincinnati was going to solve their issue. And they figured that would give them this next step up to take this leap into, contending status 2 years in a row. That's not going to happen. Obviously, Sorsby is not going to play. Will Hammond got some action last year, but there's a reason that this staff went to the portal for Sorsby. If they really felt that Hammond was the guy that could lead them back to the promised land, they wouldn't have gone after somebody like Sorsby. And especially when the cost came out that it was up to $5 million they were willing to pay him. So if you thought you had on your roster the answer, you're not going to pay out $5 million to bring somebody else in, right? The other issue is this was a team that last year they were 12th in sacks allowed in the Big 12 with almost 2 per games. That's tough to overcome game in and game out. They did a good job of it last year. Just not sure they can get away with that again this year. And look, you have a kid like Hammond in there who has limited playing time, could get a little dicey for him.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So Texas Tech coming in at number 17. We'll have number 16 tomorrow. You mentioned at TCU, they are on the Red Raiders schedule. They avoid BYU this year. That's good for them because, like you said, one of the teams that's always right there in the mix. You mentioned, speaking of TCU, want to get one note in very quickly before we sign off here. TCU is a team that in its opener will play North Carolina in Ireland coming up at the end of the month on the 29th. And the news this morning, UNC's defensive coordinator, Steve Belichick, placed on medical leave and is out indefinitely. So his dad and the head coach, Bill Belichick, making that announcement earlier today. Not clear if he'll be ready to go there on the 29th.
Yeah, that's not good news for North Carolina. They were kind of joined at the hip last year, but, we'll just have to see how they overcome that. And, there are a lot of people that pointed at Texas Tech as being, this is going to be Indiana again. Got close, then the next year they win it all. I just don't see that happening. To me, this is a 9-3 team, and they missed the playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll leave it there. We got to run. Unfortunately, Clemente Lisi, thanks so much. Anthony Miller as well. We appreciate you too. Make this a great day. We'll do it again tomorrow here on the Sports IQ. Talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.